Alright guys, I'm the NFL Addict, and today I will be making my recommendations for the 2021 Denver Broncos. So if you're watching this in a year that's not 2021 in the future, this video is not for you. Watch the video I'm coming out with that year. And this is actually the last team I have to do in the AFC, so we're almost halfway done with my first round of predictions because so much stuff has happened. I mean, you look at the Packers up there in the top right. They're 5-0. That would be much different if I knew that Jordan Love would be their quarterback, because Aaron Rodgers, if you don't know, has officially decided to hold out. So if you're excited for, if you like NFL predictions, if you like NFL videos, at all, then please subscribe, like the video. As you can tell by my name, NFL Addict, I like football. I post a lot of football content all year round. Let's go ahead and get started with week one. Well, let's actually talk about the Broncos first. The Broncos are a team that probably leaning a lot on their defense, mainly that secondary. They spent a lot of time working on it. They got Kyle Fuller from the Bears. They got Ronald Darby from Washington. They re-signed Justin Simmons. They drafted Patrick Surtain, and that's all the stuff that I can remember off the top of my head. They completely revamped that. And by the way, that Patrick Surtain pick Patrick Surtain should be a Panther right now. The Panthers taking J.C. Horn was a complete surprise to me. I thought they'd take Justin Fields, and then behind that it was Patrick Surtain, and then behind that it was J.C. Horn, and it was a pretty big gap between those three. I really thought Justin Fields, and then I was like, okay, maybe Patrick Surtain, and then like, oh man, if they completely screw up and just want to go cornerback, maybe J.C. Horn. And J.C. Horn's a good player, but we're not talking about the Panthers right now. That's still a good week off. So, and that offense, I'm sorry, but Drew Lock has not had a good career. He hasn't had any success whatsoever. He had a couple good games in his first year where he was completely, he had 5 games where he went 4-1, but if you look at those games, he really didn't do much. It was all that running game, and Philip Lindsay is no longer a Denver Bronco, so that's kind of out of the question. And also, I mean, people talk about oh, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. They're not very good. They're not, they're good, but they're not, wide receiver 1 material. I feel like they should have gone after another wide receiver. Melvin Gordon isn't bad, but let's go ahead and get started talking about the Broncos. I don't think they're going to do too great, especially, looking at this schedule. It's not doing them really that many favors other than these 2 games right here. In week 1, they have an away game against the Giants, who have a pretty good defense, and now adding Kyle Rudolph and Kenny Golladay really ramps up that offense, and this is really probably the year for Daniel Jones to prove himself. If Daniel Jones can go out there and play like a future franchise quarterback, if he can take a third-year step, then the Giants will definitely have the NFC East in the bag. I don't think he will. I think he'll still be pretty bad, but still, I mean, even a pretty bad quarterback with that wide receiver core now and with that good of a defense will probably be able to beat the Broncos. All right, now in week 2, they have an away game against the Jaguars. I'm assuming Trevor Lawrence will be starting in this one. The Jaguars, they really don't have anything. They didn't make any moves over the offseason. All they did was just kind of coast until the draft, and then in the draft they got the man they wanted, but then they also drafted Travis Etienne in the freaking first round, and that's not going to help them. They already have James Robinson. It was really James Robinson was the whole reason they had any amount of success last year, and they didn't, but he was really the only thing that was working. And then they're going to get another, I mean, running back was one of the positions that I feel like they definitely had a small hole, but the rest of their team, they had a lot more gaping holes. So the Jaguars haven't impressed me at all this past year, and the Broncos are going to get a win to jump up to .500. Enjoy it while it lasts. And then in week 3, they have a home game, their first home game actually, against the Jets. The Jets, they will be starting Zach Wilson. I think he'll be pretty good. He was my QB3 going in the draft. I know I didn't make any draft boards, but I watched some film, okay? So I think that he will be pretty good. However, I mean, a lot of people are hyping up this Jets offense. It's going to definitely be the better part of their team, but that defense, they don't really have anybody on there. That defense is pretty terrible. And that offense, I mean, it's okay, but it's not as good as people are hyping it up to be. So the Broncos are going to get their second one. Now they're 2-1. And looking at the rest of the schedule, I don't know how long that's going to last, folks. Because in week 4, they have another home game, 2 straight home games, this time against the Ravens, who I do believe the hype of this team's offense. They have a very good offense. Sammy Watkins, they got a pretty good wide receiver in the draft, and, I mean, Lamar Jackson is just really good. And that defense, it has been stellar. It showed up last season a lot. They also have, obviously, Hollywood Brown. I like now also, I'm talking about all the wide receivers. Denver does have a pretty good secondary, so I could see this one being a lot closer than a lot of people might think it will be. I could see this one being a 1-point game, not 1 point, but like 1-score game. However, I still think that Baltimore is going to win. This is a pretty good matchup for Denver's defense, just not their offense. And then in Week 5, they have an away game against Pittsburgh, who have such a good defense. Even with losing Bud Dupree, they still have so many pieces on there, and that offense is a bit underrated now. I feel like a lot of people are saying they're going to be pretty terrible. I don't think so. I think they're going to be pretty good. So now they fall back into a losing record with a loss against the Steelers. But never fear, they have a home game against the Raiders. I'm probably going to have them split with the Raiders, so they're going to win their home game. I just think these teams are kind of on the same level. They don't really have an offense, and their defense is kind of okay. I actually like the Raiders a bit more, but it's not enough to have them sweep the Broncos. I like that Raiders offense a bit more than I like Denver's offense. But also I like that Denver defense more. So they're kind of on the same level. It's kind of hard. Now they're back at the .500. They're looking kind of good. They've won 3 games. They've lost 3 games. It's all good. Now they have a really big test though in Week 7, an away game against the Browns. Who, I mean, really they're also kind of like the Broncos when they completely bumped up that defense. I learned English, guys. So I'm gonna have Cleveland win. I don't think it's really that big of a surprise. Cleveland, if they don't completely fall off. I mean, last year they were so good and they did nothing but add to that defense this year. Or this offseason, they're going to be really, really stellar. All right, now back down to a losing record, and this schedule isn't going to give them any favors. They have a Week 8 game against the Washington football team, who have an amazing defense. Their defense really doesn't have that many holes. I mean, I guess safety could be kind of rough, but Landon Collins and William Jackson, I mean, that secondary as a whole is doing pretty good. I guess linebacker maybe, but really it's hard to find flaws with this Washington defense. And that offense, though, do I really trust Ryan Fitzpatrick? I'm not totally sure, but when he's got, I can't think of his name, but that wide receiver they signed from Carolina, I can't think of his name, but Curtis Samuel. They got Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin. I mean, this wide receiver room has been completely revamped with Curtis Samuel and Adam Humphries. I like what Washington's doing with that offense, and I'm going to give them another win. That NFC East is going to be really interesting to see if it's Washington or the Giants on top. As you can see, they're pretty even in my book. All right, now they have an away game against Dallas, and this is one that if they're looking to go back up to .500, they probably really need to win. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, whenever I'm done with my predictions, I will do best case and worst case scenario. So if you're a Broncos fan and you're mad at 3 and 5, maybe you'll like best case scenario. You probably will like best case scenario a lot more than worst case scenario in this scenario. In Week 9, they have an away game against Dallas. This is one that they probably could win because really all they did, I mean, Dallas really doesn't have an offensive line. So if Denver had a pretty good defensive line, then this would be a good game for them. They do have Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, so they do have a chance here. I like that Denver defense against that Dallas offense. They have a pretty strong secondary, and Dallas is mainly a passing offense. I mean, we saw last year when Dak Prescott got taken away and their passing offense basically disappeared. Ezekiel Elliott completely flopped. He's good at complementing a good passing offense. So, however, that Dallas defense, they did add to that secondary, so I think this will be a pretty good one, and I'm going to have to give it to Dallas here just because I like that offense. I do think Ezekiel Elliott will be able to do a lot of damage, and yeah, this one could be one that Denver definitely could win. Now in Week 10, they have a home game against Philadelphia. Philadelphia sold everybody. They're hoping that Jalen Hurts works out. And, Jalen Hurts, I think he will be good, but will he be good enough? I think he'll be good, but the rest of this team will not be. I don't think they're giving him enough options. They have Zach Ertz on there, but other than that, really nobody. So I'm giving this one to Denver. I mean, they're hanging in there. They're probably not completely out of the playoff picture yet. They're going into their bye week at 4-6. I don't think they're out of things yet. I think that they're probably thinking, all right, if we can get a couple good wins here, not completely flop. I mean, best case scenario for the Broncos is definitely going to be in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure. But right now, the Chiefs twice in their second half, it's not looking good. Then they go up against the Chargers, a home game coming off of a bye, so looking pretty good. However, the Chargers are also looking pretty good. A whole new coaching regime, and pretty good offense. Obviously, they have the offensive rookie of the year on their team, so that helps a lot. I like this Chargers offense a lot. The defense not so much, but I also don't like that Denver offense. So I could see them splitting maybe, but I'm probably just gonna have the Chargers sweep them. So the Chargers get a win, knock them down to 4-7, and now I mean for me, I don't know if that's the same. I don't know if it's the same with everyone else, but there's such a big difference between 4-6 and 4-7. Because for me, like 4-6, you get a couple good games. Right after that, you're back into the mix of it. You're .500. You're going strong. 4-7. Once you have a 3-game gap, it's pretty rough. And now, I mean, I don't really have to say too much. The Chiefs are going to win this one. But now they have a home game against the Lions, though. And the Lions, they took a slight, not a slight, they declined at quarterback with Jared Goff. Getting rid of Matthew Stafford and replacing him with Jared Goff isn't going to help them whatsoever. And that defense isn't all that great. However, yeah, they also lost Kenny Golladay. Yeah, I don't like what Detroit's doing at all. I feel like I like their head coach. I mean, that haircut, their new head coach is amazing. I mean, I think he's kind of gone. I don't want to sound old, but he's kind of gone viral. I'm gonna give Denver this win here. Probably doesn't mean anything. They're back up to 5-8, so yeah. But now they have a home game against the Bengals, who should have took Penei Sewell, but also now that we're looking back, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd is a pretty good wide receiver room. That definitely is going to help out Joe Burrow, who is coming off of that pretty bad injury last year. So the Cincinnati offense, and they did sign Riley Reif to their offensive line, so this offense is definitely going to be the better part of their team. And, I think this will be a pretty good matchup for Denver, but also it's a pretty good matchup for the Bengals. I'm going to give this one to the Bengals. I really like their wide receiver unit. It's going to be really close. I'm just leaning towards the Bengals because I like their offense better than Denver's offense. Whatever. It was pretty much 50-50. Going to have them split here. Going to have them get swept here. And I'm going to have them get swept here. Boom. It's the second time they play their division opponents. It's not really easy because I can just say sleep, split, or sweep. All right, so 5-12. That is the most accurate. That's the most accurate prediction, I feel. But now we get to do worst case scenario and see how bad it could get. I feel like worst case scenario is pretty simple, there and there. Yeah, that's worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is also there. That's worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is 215, and this isn't likely. Don't think that I'm saying, this is a couple, bad plays. This is worst case scenario. This is not very likely. Also, best case scenario, not very likely. This is as far back as I'm willing to stretch, taking all those close games and throwing them to the opponent. But also, now I'm going to do best case scenario, and I'm going to go through all of their losses. I'm going to see which ones I could potentially see them flip over as wins. All right, and where was that last one? There. Back up to 5-12. And by the way, they are still above the Raiders. So if you're a Broncos fan, you don't like the Raiders, you can be happy with that. Let me go ahead and I'll do that after I'm done with the best case scenario. I want to flip it over and see how they rank against every other AFC team. Best case scenario. All right, all these are pretty solid. Yep, they could beat Dallas. They could split with the Chargers. I could see that happening. They could beat Cincinnati. They could sweep Las Vegas. And this is as far as I'm going to stretch. This isn't very likely, but I could potentially see them sweeping the Chargers. That is, a pretty big stretch. Now let's see. Wow. Okay, so that somehow doesn't push them into the playoffs. Wow. One behind. Who's at 7? The Steelers. Wow. Okay, let's go back to normal because it doesn't matter. This is just best case scenario. And I guess obviously best case scenario is the Steelers lose 2 more games. Or wait, does that push y'all into the playoffs if you win this game? Wow. So if best case scenario does happen, this game right here is going to be very, very important. But again, this is very unlikely. I don't think there's really that big of a chance of Denver making the playoffs. But who knows? Best case scenario happens, then out of here. I'm going to do best case scenario, so if it does happen, then I can be like, oh yeah, I can cover myself. You're like, hey, yeah, I actually thought that's what happened in best case scenario, which is not very likely. All right, and then Dallas. There we go. So let me see. Where do they rank against? Because now I have the whole AFC done. You know, I can do that on my free time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next one when I will be talking about the now Jordan Love-led Green Bay Packers. It's going to be pretty chaotic because there's going to be 5 games there where there are instant wins because I thought that they had Aaron Rodgers. But so now I want to be saying that Jordan Love is going to beat the Chiefs until I do my updated predictions whenever Aaron Rodgers signs with them. And then I look even more stupid. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you in my next one where, again, I'll be talking about the Green Bay Packers. Please don't get too mad at me. Comment. Don't just comment and say, oh, this dude is stupid. Don't just dislike. Let me know. Say, hey, you know, Jerry Jeudy's going to take a big second-year leap. And, you know, best case scenario is worst case scenario in my eyes. So, yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you in